Hello, 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 and thank you so much for joining in today's episode where we're going to be discussing Proverbs 31. Oh, I feel like you always hear about Proverbs 31, but how deep do we really get into it? Like, we can pull some gems out of it, and I love this for us. If you're new here, my name is Jazzy Nicole. I do faith-based content right here on YouTube. I also do it on TikTok, and also Instagram. You know it. If you like faith-based content from a woman's perspective towards becoming a P31 here in 2024, go ahead and click that subscribe button because I got you, baby. Let's get into it. You guys, when it talks about becoming a Proverbs 31 woman, we always hear about Proverbs 31, the chapter. We go through and we read it and read it and read it and read it and meditate on it, remember it, then forget it, then remember it and forget it. But we're going to talk about 6 things that define a Proverbs 31 woman, but not without getting into the whole chapter in itself, because there's some things that I uncovered as I was studying Proverbs 31 for this here video that were new to me. And I don't know if it's new to you, but sharing is caring. Okay, so let's get into it. So getting into Proverbs 31 is October 31st, and I've been doing the Proverbs challenge for all of October. If you're not familiar with what the Proverbs challenge is, every single day for the month of October, you are reading one book of Proverbs. So for instance, October 1st, you read Proverbs 1. October 2, you read Proverbs 2. October 3, you read Proverbs 3. And then you get it. You know what I'm saying? You get it. You keep it going. So this is October 1st or 31st. So that means that I've been reading Proverbs every single day for 31 days. You guys, I'm excited. Oh my God. If you have not done this before, I strongly recommend it. Proverbs talks about obtaining godly wisdom, and it's written by a man, predominantly, his name is Solomon. He wrote most of the chapters. There were some help. He got some help. Chapters 25 through 29 were actually inspired by Solomon, but written by men of King Hezekiah. So it was written by the men of Hezekiah. But let's get into chapter 31 because it's so good. Solomon wrote most of the book of Proverbs. Notably, he wrote between chapter 1 through chapter 24. Chapters 25 through 29 were written by men of Hezekiah. Hezekiah was a king. But when we look at Proverbs number 31, chapter 31, specifically verses 1 through 9, we notice a tone change. And literally, this is written from a mama of King Lemuel. Now, what's crazy that I just discovered is that King Lemuel may actually be referring to King Solomon. Let me get into it. So King Solomon's mama may have given him a nickname, Lemuel, because Lemuel means to be set aside. It means with God. It has so many different translations, but those are the ones that are most predominant. You know what I'm saying? So if we think about it, when we're looking at Proverbs chapter 31, verses 1 through 9, this is a letter from her mama to her son, who just so happens to be a king. Now, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I do want to tell you some tea. You can tell just by reading chapter 31, verses 1 through 9, how much this mother loved her son. What is dope is that King Lemuel is the only king mentioned in the book of Proverbs. This is why people think it's Solomon. They think that his mom gave him a nickname, Lemuel, and she wrote him this nice, beautiful notes, to-dos, and what not to do as a king. And it's also the first teaching of a woman written in the Bible. Crazy. Now, when we get into this, let's think about it like this. I'm going to give you a breakdown of some key points from Proverbs 31, verses 1 through 9. Just some takeaways. Because keep in mind, this is a mama writing to her baby. She loves her son, period, and do. So, number 1 is she's telling her son not to give himself to a woman that may ruin a king. She's basically telling him to watch out. She said, don't mess with no harlots. Y'all know what harlots meant back in the day. Y'all know what that meant? Look it up. Look it up. Girl, harlots. Oops. You know what I'm saying? She said, don't be messing with no girl who gonna ruin you, period. That's a good mama. Number 2, she told her son, don't get drunk, because getting drunk is going to cause you to make bad decisions. That's a good mama. That's a good mama. Number 3, if you look at verses 6 and 7 in Proverbs chapter 31, she is basically telling him, listen, if you got to give anybody a drink, Give a drink, strong medicine to a person who is dying. Give them strong medicine because she doesn't want them to feel any pain. And then she says, if somebody's life is bitter, like they're going through a lot, then give them wine. That's customary back in the time. They gave wine. You know what I'm saying? They drink wine at parties. They drink wine when they were going through a hard time. She said, give them wine under those circumstances, but you better not get drunk. You better not get drunk. Number 4, she said, stand up for the ones who can't speak, that can't stand up for themselves. Baby, you a king. You a king. Stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. I know that's right, mama. I know that's right. And then last but not least, she said, you better judge wisely. She said, judge wisely. Judge wisely. She told her son, she said, listen, I need you to make sure that when you are judging someone, you are judging wisely. Period. Now, let's look at Proverbs 31, verses 10 through 31. This is where God tells us the standards of the woman that he wants us to be. Now, when we look at this, we don't need to take it literal because it's talking about a woman who tends to her yard and all this stuff. We don't have to take it literal, but there are principles included in Proverbs chapter 31, verses 10 through 31 that tells us the standards that God is calling us to be as a woman. I pulled out a few standards and I'm going to give you 7 standards of a Proverbs 31 woman. I know. I'm excited. I know. Overwhelmed. Okay, so let's get into it. So number 1, and I'm going to look specifically at verse 31 through 10. And this is in no specific order. No specific order. But I'm going to be looking at Proverbs 31 verse 10, where it is talking about this woman. Who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubies. What does that say? She's a rare breed. Maybe she's rare. She's rare. You think it's easy to find some rubies? I mean, you may be able to find like some cheap knockoff rubies on Shein, but do you think it's easy to find rubies? No, ma'am, it's not. Rubies are rare. It's saying that her worth is far more than the rarest of rubies. It's hard to find it. Sis, worth far more. She's in the world, but she's not of the world. She's not like them. Somebody cue Kendrick Lamar.
Please stop. No, please stop.
Exactly. You see what I'm saying? She's rare. Number 2, the heart of her husband safely trusts her, so he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax, and she willingly works with her hands. 2 things stand out to me. This is a woman who is very trustworthy. Her husband trusts her. She encourages growth in her husband. And let's take a step back and look at this for us who are not married. Okay. You know, one day I'm gonna get a ring, but right now, baby, I'm worried about this relationship. Amen. But let's look at this for those of us who are not married, because singleness is spoke of highly in the Bible. It talks about how being single is an opportunity for you to glorify God and for you to work towards what God is calling you to do. It's talking about, remember Paul was telling the church how singleness was important? Singleness is a blessing. So let's talk about how this verse could help us in our single season. Having the character of being trustworthy is beautiful. Having the character of being someone who can be trustworthy, who can be trusted by her friends, be trusted by her family, someone like that is amazing, right? Having someone who encourages growth. You encourage your friends to grow. You encourage your children. You encourage people that you're dating to grow and to be better people. That is amazing. And talk about the people who are married. For you, your husband trusts you. You encourage your husband. You bring him good and not evil. Proverbs talked a lot about the nagging woman. It talked a lot about the contentious woman. You aren't her. The virtuous woman, that's not who she is. She's worked on that. She's healed herself for that. She's worked on areas of her life that could bring down someone, and she wants to work on being a light. Number 3, she's resourceful, she's prepared, and she's proactive. And let's look at verses 14 through 19. Verses 21 through 22 and verse 31. She is like merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She also rises while yet night and provides food for her household and a portion for her maidservants. She considers a field and then buys it. From her profit she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and strengthens her arms. She preserves what She preserves that her merchandise is good, and her lamp does not go out by the night. She stretches out her hands to the distaff, and her hands holds the spindle. Verses 21 through 22. She is not afraid of snow for her household is clothed with scarlet. She makes tapestry for herself. Her clothing is fine, linen and purple. Verse 31. Give her fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. Let's talk about this. So, when we look at verses 14 through 19, we are looking at examples of a woman who back in this time, she is looking for ways to build her own clothes for her family. She's working in the yard. She's finding yards. She's, finding yards to turn them into profit so that she can take care of what she needs to take care of. She's strong in the hands. This is of that time, right? Makes so much sense because of that season. They worked with their hands. They built everything from scratch. Is this saying that in order to be a Proverbs 31 woman in 2024, you need to have a yard and you need to be in the gym lifting 85 pounds with your pinky so your arms are strong? No, that's not what it's saying. But it is saying that this is a woman who is resourceful. She uses her resources. She's prepared because she's not afraid of the snow, baby. Her kids is good. Her family's straight. She got that all taken care of. She's building her house. She's prepared. She's good to go. She's proactive because when the snow comes, her family good. You see what I'm saying? You see it? Yeah. It's yeah, period. And when we look at verse 31, all the Proverbs, we've been talking about humility, all of Proverbs. And we've been talking about don't praise yourself, let someone else praise you, right? Yeah, remember? We talked about that in Proverbs. When we look at verse 31, it's saying that her hands are producing fruit. That's the whole thing in itself. Her hands are producing fruit. Yeah, sis is blessed. Sis is blessed. She's doing it. She's doing a great job. Her hands are producing fruit. And then it says that her own works praise her at the gates. Before you even walk in, baby, you can see exactly how she's doing. She's doing good. Her works are praising her. Her works are praising her. You see what I'm saying? She doesn't have to get praise for herself because she can see. She done made her house a home, baby. She doing that. Yeah. Number 4. She has strength and honor. 25 through 26. It says, strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and her tongue is the law of kindness. All the Proverbs we've been talking about how much Solomon has put emphasis on guarding your tongue and being mindful about what you say. He's put so much emphasis in the fact that there's life and death in our tongue. And when we look at Proverbs 31, this is a woman who is very mindful about what she says. I mean, you can't encourage growth if you're tearing down people. Am I right? It's hard to grow when someone is constantly tearing you down with their words or pulling you down with their words or their demeanor. But it's easy to grow when someone speaks life into you. Am I right? Yeah, when you water a plant with your words of wisdom and your words of kindness, and you water the relationship with words of kindness and words of wisdom, people around you are going to thrive. People around you are going to grow. And this is what this is talking about. This woman is not only strong mentally, but she's strong physically because she's taking care of what she needs to take care of. I'm not saying that you have to be protein packed and lifting all this weight, but there is a level of strength attached when you are relying on God and less on yourself. This woman clothes herself in honor. That means when she walks out of this house, baby, she has a full armor. She understands her armor of God. She understands her armor of God. She's clothed in honor. She understands that when she walks out this house, she's not only a representation of her husband, but she's a representation of her father. So she's very mindful because she is a child of God. So she represents herself in that way. When you are clothed, if you think about it, she's clothed in purple and linen. That is royalty. That is royalty. We are royalty. As children of God, we are royalty because our Father is the King. He is the Most High. So why would I not clothe myself in strength and clothe myself in honor? Why would I not protect how I look on the outside so that way I can present myself in the best way that God is calling me to present myself? You see? Okay. Number 5 is she's a role model. And if we look at verses 28 through 29, we can clearly see her role model status because if you look at it, it says, her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, he praises her. Many daughters have done well, but you excel them all. Period. So we live in a society now where people are like, I don't want to be nobody's role model. I don't want to be nobody's role model. Okay. But the Proverbs 31 doesn't mind. She's a role model because her children look at her and call her blessed. Her children are like, that's a good mama. I got a good mama. I gotta go. Her husband praises her. Her husband looks at her and says, you know what? There's many people who have done a good job, but you have done phenomenal. You have done amazing. Her children look up to her. She is a role model. I mean, she gotta be. She's a Proverbs 31. A P31 period. And she's a role model. She presents herself as such. Last, but definitely not least. Super important. And really, this should be number one. But the Proverbs 31 woman has a relationship with God. How do you know that? How do you know that, Jasmine? If you look at verse 30 in Proverbs 31, it says, charm is deceitful, beauty is passing, but a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised. Let's talk about this. So we know that God is focused on our internal, and how we show ourselves up in the world is important, but God is focused on our internal. He's focused on our heart. He's focused on our heart posture, right? When we look at this, a woman who fears the Lord. So to fear, yay, thank you so much.
Be a little crunchy, but they still got
Ooh, thank you. Oh. Okay. No. I made this.
Sorry.
Tastes like chicken.
So I was.
Tastes like chicken to me. It happens. I've done it too. Love you.
Love you.
If you follow me on TikTok, we've had this conversation before about what it really means to fear the Lord. Well, I grew up at a time where fearing the Lord was literally being afraid of him. It meant being scared of him. You know, we were controlled by the fear of going to hell. We were controlled by the fear of God striking us down. But as you grow in your relationship with God, you understand that fearing the Lord doesn't mean being scared of him. You understand that his relationship is so valuable to you that losing it is scary. Fearing losing the Lord is scary because you understand that as he is guiding your footsteps, walking without him is not even an option anymore. I need you to lead my steps because God, I know I'll be messing up. That's exactly what we're thinking about when we're looking at Proverbs chapter 31, verse 30. She loves God. She has a relationship with God. She fears losing him. Right? Yeah. Charm is deceitful. Beauty is fading. You can be the most charming person in the world and still not have the heart of God. Still not have a heart after God's own heart. You can be the most beautiful person in the world, but still be evil to the core. Looks don't matter. What does your relationship with God look like? Because as a Proverbs 31 woman, she cares about how she represents herself in the world. She cares about representing herself. She cares more about her relationship with God. She cares more about not losing that fundamentally important relationship with her Father. In order to be all of these things, 1 through 5, in order to be rare, in order to be trustworthy and encourage growth in other people, in order to be resourceful, prepared, and proactive, in order to be strong and honorable, in order to be a role model for the women of God, you have to first have a relationship. You have to first have a relationship. And the Proverbs 31 woman not only has a relationship with God for herself, but she has a relationship with God for her family. She understands that the leader in her household, her husband, must also have a relationship with God. She understands that because of his relationship with God, it's a trickle-down effect. Their family is going to be blessed. This is why it's so important that during our single seasons, we are focused on developing that relationship with God. If you desire marriage, having your relationship with God is so important because you want him to lead you in your next relationship. You want him to lead you in your current role, in your current life, where he has you currently. It's so important because the godly wisdom that you get from walking with your Father, you can't find it nowhere else. You just can't. You're not going to find it on a TV show. You're not going to find it on a YouTube video. You're not going to find it on Netflix, Love is Blind, episode number 7. You're not going to find it. But what you will find when you take the time and read God's word and obtain his godly wisdom, baby. I can even put it to words, baby. Peace that surpasses all understanding. Because he has you covered. So when we're thinking about the Proverbs 31 woman, she reads her word. She has a relationship with God. She fears losing him. She understands how valuable the relationship with God is. She carries herself respectfully and honorably because she's a daughter of the Most High. First and foremost, a child of God. Period. First and foremost, a child of God. Proverbs 31 gets me so excited every time I talk about it. I feel like it's just an amazing standard of what God is calling us to be. And there's nothing wrong with going back and reminding yourself, what does God say about me? How does God want me to be? He wants me to be strong. He wants me to be affirming. He wants me to have spiritual leadership. Before I let you go, I have got to read to you verse 17 in chapter 31 of Proverbs. So we're going to look at Proverbs 31, verse 17. But I'm going to read this in the Amplified version because I feel like it speaks volumes. It says, she equips herself with strength, spiritual, mental, and physical fitness for her God-given tasks and makes her arm strong. There is one thing about preparation season, baby. When God is calling you to work on your spiritual, your mental, and your physical fitness, he's calling you to that for a reason because he has something for you that he wants you to be prepared for. The Proverbs 31 woman understands that. So she is working on preparing herself for the purpose that God is calling her to do, or preparing herself in the season of her purpose so that she can withstand and do exactly what God is calling her to do. It makes her arm strong. Your arms got to be strong to hold all the blessings that God has given to you. Your arms must be strong to hold everything that God is calling you to hold. Your arms must be strong to carry your family and your husband and your friend. Your arms have to be strong for that. So in order to be strong for that, the Proverbs 31 woman prepares herself spiritually. She's reading her word. She's fasting. She's praying. She's having intimate time with God uninterrupted. She's prioritizing her relationship with her Father. Mentally, she's going to therapy. She's getting these things out. She's journaling. She's releasing these things in a healthy way. Physically, she's working on her diet. She's going to the gym. She's getting her things right. She wants to be completely prepared to carry everything that God is calling her to carry. I couldn't let this video end without sharing that in the Amplified version because I thought it was beautiful. But before I end, you guys, take the time to invest your time with God. It is a beautiful thing. Your Father is calling for you. He loves you. What is God saying to you as you are working on obtaining godly wisdom by spending intimate time reading his word? What is he saying to you? Comment below if you have any other things that you're adding to this video. Listen, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time in the next video. Bye. If you're new here, talking about the Proverbs 31 woman literally excites me. It excites me so much so I have a podcast called Becoming P31 on all of the podcast platforms. Why Becoming P31? Because most of us don't just wake up and feel like the Proverbs 31 woman. Our life challenges us. Things challenge us. Life changes us. Our circumstances impact us and changes how we view the world. It changes how we act. It changes how we think. And some of us have to go back to the process of starting from square one and learning what God called us, who God said we are, who God says that we are. And in 2024, when the world around us is demanding a different type of woman, focusing on becoming the Proverbs 31 woman becomes even more important. Let's get into it. If you're interested in coming along with the journey to become a Proverbs 31 woman, go ahead and click the link in my bio, or you can search me up. It's Becoming P31 with your host, Jazzy Nicole, and let's follow along on this journey. Bye.